Something else I think you mentioned here in the book, and I know I've heard you say it elsewhere, is that when you're reading regularly, books find their way to you. It seems like that the universe
Yeah,
knows you need to read this,
yeah.
and so there it is.
Sometimes they do, and sometimes in a personal way, and sometimes, as a writer, I'm thinking of a book that I absolutely loved, which was called Tiger Moon Tiger by a British writer named Penelope Lively, and this book came out years ago. And I think it won the Booker Prize. But anyway, I was working on a book of mine that's called Faithful Women, and it was set in England, and it had to do with something that was happening in the present time, which was a person who had come to repair a painting in the National Gallery. But it also hinged on a lot of things that had happened in World War II, because this person was my age and had parents and whatever. So I don't even remember exactly how this worked, but I was struggling with the structure of this book. I couldn't figure out what the structure was. And so I picked up this book of Penelope Lively's, and there was something about that book. And like I said, I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, but it just it triggered something in my mind. And all of a sudden I was like, and I suddenly understood, what something that I needed to do in my own book. So, you get that. And sometimes it's like, and I can't necessarily think of a particular example, but you see somebody do something and you think, well, I didn't know you could do that. And so you think, well, then I can do that. And so it gives you, it widens your scope of what you think is possible for you to do in a book. The last book that I wrote, this about grace, is like that. It's just a bunch of fragments in a lot of ways. And 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I could do that, but yet I did. So I don't know. I think it's really an interesting thing. I think you get a lot, from as a writer. I also think reading, and I mean, I read 105 books last year, and they were almost all fiction. And so I think the thing that I get from that too is like this sort of osmosis thing where my brain is taking in all these different flows and structures and ways of doing things, and it's doing it totally on an unconscious, subconscious level. But nonetheless, there in my head is a whole bunch of stuff that can come into play as I'm trying to solve a problem. And I don't necessarily even connect it to whatever book I read. It's just that I've read so many books that I just have all that technical stuff in my head without even knowing that it's technical. That sounds really nutty, but
No, I disagree. I think that if you do anything long enough on a regular basis,
yeah,
it's gonna you're gonna have that down. Of
it
course.
has worked that way for me, and I love that. So that's how I justify reading all the time when I
Well,
should
that's
be
one of
doing other
many
things.
arguments for why everyone should read more, but writers in particular. If
Yeah, I
you're
was
going about
amazed.
thinking, I'm the first person to ever write a book, why is it
I
so hard?
know.
No, you're not. There's lots of examples of how to do this successfully. Go see
Well,
what,
and how
what
could you think you
smart
could be
people
a
have done.
writer if you didn't like to read? That's just crazy to me. But a lot of
Well,
people
you
do.
say that, but you and I both know that there are students that
Yeah,
come in
no,
every
it's true.
workshop
I
that
say, I say to them, "What's your favorite book?" And they're like, "I don't really like to read that much. But I want to write a novel." And I think, well, really?
once I'm a famous novelist, I'll find time to read other books.
Maybe, maybe. Yeah, yeah, I know. It's very, very strange. But I mean, books are like food to me. I, I just eat them up. I mean, I really have that feeling like, ah! And I can't stop. I'm so bad that when my second daughter was born, I was right in the middle of a big fat James Michener novel that I took to the hospital with me. And after she was born, I kept reading and reading, and every time they would bring the baby, I would think, oh, I have to put the book down. That's terrible. That's
Oh,
it.
I love that about you. I think we talked about that last time. That's such a Barbara Shoup story
Bad,
that you
bad,
cannot
bad.
put those books
She's
down.
forgiven me. Anyway,
She made it to 18. It's fine.
just made 40, like, 40, more than I want to think. 47.
One of my go-to metaphors, because it's something I haven't done, but I always chuckle about the idea of people going out to the rainforest and or the jungle, and you get a medicine shaman that makes the ayahuasca, and everybody takes it, and then your mind is opened up to this incredible spiritual experience. Or so I'm told. I don't know. Maybe you just go out there and then you get bit by mosquitoes and wet.
It sounds more like yeah, that's what would happen to me.
But I always think that you could have that experience at your library. Just get yourself a book.
You know what? That's what I always think. What do you need drugs for? You do not need them. You could just have that same kind of fabulous escape in a book. It's I just always feel like, I'm on this mission, right? That if I could just find the right book for each person, they would say, "Oh, I didn't know it was like this," and then they would become readers. It happens sometimes. No.
Indiana. I was raised fairly strictly religious, although by Indiana terms, I got a pretty light. I knew plenty of kids in my class that were in much worse shape, but pretty heavy religion, and I was dyed in the wool, would fight anybody I saw for pro-life position right up until I was 18, 19, and started for the first time really thinking for myself beyond the preconceived notions that had come on me. And I read The Cider House Rules by John Irving, and that book forever changed me. I could never see the facts the same way again after that. It fractured something in my brain, and that was the start of a brand new Rob that emerged from that. Yep. Because if that initial thing, that foundational belief that I had taken that could not be shaken, could in fact be shooken, or shook. I don't think shook is a thing. But if that could be challenged, if that could be changed, what other views could be changed? Yeah. And that made me I was already a reader for life, but that book in particular was the right book that found me, that really broke my brain apart.
That's cool.